Oh, good.
You homer! Got to be careful with Johnny Pecker. I mean, pick your poison with that defense.
Good stuff.
9 to noon. I know, right?
The Vikings.
The Duke! The Duke! The Duke is on fire! You lucky suckers.
Oh, my God!
Pleasant good morning to you, and thank you very much for listening to FM 100.3 KFAN, or as all the kids and 99.2% of the world calls it, KFAN. And I'm Paul Allen. Nordo produces in the Twin Cities. Yours truly is at the Vikings Team Hotel in downtown Cleveland, into our third day in Cleveland and heading into the second joint practice for the Vikings and the Browns. And the first time I had the privilege of sitting down with a couple of NFL head coaches and elite offensive minds. Kevin O'Connell's into his third year as head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. His first coaching job was quarterbacks coach for the Cleveland Browns. That team was coached by Vikings outside linebackers coach Mike Pettin, who joins 9 to noon today, about 90 minutes from now. Kevin Stefanski is into his fifth year coaching the Cleveland Browns and is a two-time National Football League Coach of the Year. He was with the Minnesota Vikings for 14 years, finishing in 2019 as offensive coordinator. So after the first joint, sat down with KOC and Kevin Calm and learned these learned passing game minds, had some good things to say and some interesting things to say about day one of the joints, plus their careers. And we began with Kevin O'Connell asking him, so how'd it go today?
I thought it was awesome. I cannot, when you schedule these joint practices, you got to really think long and hard about, it's not just find the first team that you can find to agree to practice against. It's about this guy right here, this beautiful facility. We don't just leave our facility for nothing because we love our place in Egan, but just to be able to put together 2 days of work with this guy and know the type of players, the type of team he has, they're going to practice the right way, physical, tough, made us better just in one day, and we get one more day to do it. So I thought it was awesome, and we'll come back and do it again tomorrow.
That's the plan. Yeah, like KO said, having a familiarity with their staff. How many guys on both our staffs have worked together, so they know each other. So it's such an important part of just getting your work done and just watch it. I had the view of that other field, and then we'll go watch the other. When we get back, we'll watch the tape of the other side. But guys were just working, and that's the fun part where pros are pros. All these guys know each other from high school days, college days. So got some really good work done, and like KO said, I think it'll make both teams better.
How well do you guys know each other? And do you talk outside of just getting ready for joint practices?
Well, I know back in 2008 he was pounding the table saying,
"There's this
Coach Childress, there's this kid from San Diego State.
He's like 9 feet tall."
And he just, he didn't quite have the same pull that he has now to get it done. But no, I just have always, not only his path he's coached a bunch of different positions at a really high level. He's called plays at a really high level, and then he kind of gets a chance to come here and an organization and a football town that loves their team, and I think they've really embraced this guy because they know how special of a leader he is, and he's a damn good football coach, and he does it the right way. So I'm always trying to get to know him even better, right? But we'll save that for the league meetings.
Yeah,
we get a chance to let our hair down a bit.
We get along. Our wives get along. Yeah, that's important. So, but seriously, former Cleveland Brown.
Yeah, that's right.
So
that's right.
And last time you were here was what year?
2015.
So just think about that. 9 years later, here you are. Some things have changed. Buildings changed, but some faces still the same, right?
That's right.
Still some people. And same thing for me. So KO gets to come here and see some people that he remembers from his days. I'm getting to see a bunch of former Vikings that spent all those years with. So it's fun for both of us on both sides of that.
Well, on that last note, one would be Harrison Smith. And of all the years, decade and a half, a little more, that Kevin Stefanski was here and Kevin O'Connell into his third year as head coach, I know you guys are in lockstep with your respect for Harrison Smith. I remember what Stefanski used to say about him, and O'Connell on X's and O's and outside of it has said he's either one of your or your favorite players you've ever coached. Harrison Smith, the hitman. First you, Kevin.
Yeah, one of my favorite players to coach, not my favorite player to coach against.
Yeah,
that is not fun because he's so cerebral. Even today, he was doing some stuff. I was busting his chops. He was making calls, and he was making fake. I knew he was making fake calls, so he was messing with us there. And then just the ball skills that Harry has, the amount of balls he's gotten to in his career, just so athletic, plays so hard. He's certainly one of my favorites.
And why is he one of your favorites?
Well, I just think he's one of the few guys that comes up to my office and likes to have a cup of coffee with me. Sometimes when you have a guy that's played as long as Harry has, sometimes it's good for him too, therapeutic to be around somebody a little closer to his age up in the head ball coach's office. But I think it's what he said though. It's like I really value people that are the same version of themselves, which is great every day, authentic. You know exactly what you're going to get. I can lean on him. He's such an unbelievable leader in how he does it. His leadership style, I think, is really one of one. And I can say he's one of my favorite coaches or favorite players I've ever coached, as long as Justin Jefferson's not about 15 feet away. And then we got a problem. But,
all right.
Absolutely love him. You know that.
Well, and AFC Kevin. We'll go AFC Kevin and NFC Kevin. But this is for both of you. And you said something about NFC Kevin in 2015. That was Kevin's first coaching job in the NFL. Mike Pettin was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Kevin was the quarterback's coach. AFC Kevin, head coach here into his fifth year. Here's the question. When the wind is whipping in from Lake Erie at this stadium, I mean, seriously, you guys are both offensive coaches. You're coaches, but offensive minds. How difficult is it to play a game and execute an offense with that wind?
Ask the guy who threw balls in that stadium.
Oh, wow.
I will tell you this much. I remember there was one game where during pregame warmups, it was about 65 degrees and sunny. By the end of the game, it was 20, snowing, 30-mile-an-hour wind. It was like nothing I had ever seen. But, yeah, I used to throw balls pregame, but you throw enough wobblers in those, that wind down there on the lake, that will humble any guy that thinks he can throw a football in the National Football League. You'll find out real quick.
Kevin, is it a home field advantage because the home team has to play in the bad conditions too?
Yeah, I think it's good for both teams. We enjoy. It does make maybe gripping the football pretty hard. We've had some games down there where I call it's like a rain globe. It's just a mist off the lake. I don't know if that's a meteorological term, but it's hard to grip that ball a lot of times. And then the wind, like I've seen that ball in pregame that it just takes a nosedive, just goes straight down. So we have to adjust. It's not like the friendly confines of U.S. Bank Stadium, of course. But both teams have to deal with the elements.
Right. Okay, now AFC, Kevin, when you see Christian Darrisaw, what do you see?
That's a good-looking kid. I mean, that's what you want him to look like. He is so physical. I didn't get to see a lot of it while I was out there, but I can't wait to watch number 95 go against number 71. I mean, that's good on good. And just to see how those guys work together and work different moves against each other, that kid's pretty special.
And then for NFC, Kevin O'Connell, when you see Myles Garrett, what do you see?
I told him today after practice, I said, you know what, to me it looked like you got some good work. I'm not going to speak for Coach Stefanski, but if you want to take tomorrow off, that is totally all right by me. But I'll tell you this much. You can tell I was fortunate to be around a guy like Aaron Donald in LA, and I just remember watching the way people respected through the scheme that they run. You always knew where the slide was going. You always knew that there was going to be 2 or 3 guys blocking them. I think it's the same way with Myles Garrett, and they just happen to have 3 or 4 or 5 other really good rushers on that front. So you really have to be aware of where he is at all times because he's a game wrecker. Really, one of the top, if not the top, edge rusher in our league. And I have a lot of respect for how he plays all downs. He plays the run, instinctive versus the different types of screens and things that he's going to see as a really, really good rusher. He can handle getting chipped on the edges. I just think he's spectacular.
Now, the Kevins, Stefanski and O'Connell, are 2 of the most well-respected offensive minds in the NFL. And when it comes to the art of designing offense and having it be ever-changing on a week-to-week basis, and running up big numbers and a lot of points. Like, where does it start? Like I know it's a broad, wide question, but simplify it for us. Like, where does that start?
I would tell you, good ideas come from everywhere. We have young coaches. We were both young coaches, and some of your young coaches will bring you a play from, honestly, sometimes high school, sometimes college, and you look at it, and you put it on the board, and then you say, all right, maybe we could do this, and you just tweak it. But it's a lot. It's really that you push all those ideas in the middle of the table, and you see which ones make it. But there's a lot of pruning going on, and hey, this will work for us. I know why they did that, but that really doesn't fit our scheme. Let's try this. So it's a lot of mixing, matching, and then it also helps when you have good players.
Yeah. What about you?
I just, as a young coach in this league, I remember whether it was Sean McVay most recently or going back to Jay Gruden, Chip Kelly. Even when I coached here, having that. When you get a play in the game plan for the first time, and then it gets called and it works and exactly how you said it would, or sometimes it's a scramble play and it looks nothing like you said it would work, and you're still equally excited because it was your play on the call sheet. So I think that's such a great point, and it also engages your whole staff. There's no such thing as a bad idea. It's just the bad ones we may prune. I like that. I might use that. I tend to use a different word. We've got the graveyard where bad plays go to die. Yeah. So every Excel spreadsheet, there's about 10 or 15 of them right
under the print area.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think it's important because then your staff's dialed in, and hopefully guys feel like they've got real roles in our staff.
Can either of you see yourselves at any point not calling plays, not being in-game play callers?
I'll go first. I mean, we've both been young coaches where we weren't play callers, and now as head coaches we've been play callers. I think it depends on the staff. It depends on what your group needs. I do know this. Even the guys that aren't per se calling plays, you can be heavily involved both during the week and even on the game, or on game day, if you will. But I enjoy a lot of things about football. I enjoyed the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, putting it on the board, coming up with those plays. I enjoy that even more than calling the plays.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I would think that, I remember getting to call plays for the first time when I was in Washington. It was mid-season, and you're getting really thrown into the fire. And I just remember how much every single quarter, every drive felt like experience that made you a better coach. And then Sean would always let me call plays in the preseason. I think Saturday, I don't know if either one of us will call a single play in that game on Saturday, so we might be a little bored. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do.
We want to get the headsets. We could probably figure this out.
Yeah, hit one button.
We just talk to each other.
Yeah, exactly right.
Hey, what are you calling here?
That'd be unbelievable.
That's going to work.
All right, one for each of them before we say goodbye. First, for Kevin O'Connell. Truly sorry about the J.J. McCarthy news. What is next for him?
Yeah, I think the blessing of when this has happened, I'm just crushed for the kid, just because he has done everything we've asked of him and then some since he's arrived. The improvement, the commitment to playing the position, the way we've asked of him, and just how he's really owned that. I was really excited about seeing him out here against the Browns, seeing him this weekend against the Browns, next week against the Eagles. So removing some of those real tangible results-based reps that you can, now we can say he actually did this or did that. Well, he's checked the box in my mind. I think from the improvement I saw to what he took to US Bank Stadium last Saturday was just an extension of what he had been doing in training camp on the daily. And so we know he can play. We know he's everything we hoped for as a person on and off the field. Really excited about his future. Now we got to figure out how to, continue this development process where maybe you remove those physical reps for a few months here. And I know I've got the coaching staff to do it with Josh and Grant, Wes, and myself. And then how does he still have a role in the short term with those other quarterbacks? Because he's got a big brain. He's really smart. He's dialed into his preparation. There's a lot of ways we can continue to make J.J. McCarthy ready to roll for when his time comes.
Mr. Stefanski, your quarterback, Deshaun Watson, when he's healthy, happy, and full bore, what do you know you'll love about him?
He's a winner. He's won at the high school level, the college level, the professional level. Even last year for us, while he wasn't a huge sample size, he won games for us. The last glimpse was winning the game for us at Baltimore. So excited for him to get back healthy. He's attacked his rehab like a crazy man. I mean, just always chomping at the bit, wanting to do more. So he's hit every step along the way, including these practices. Just another big step for him to go against a defense like the Vikings have. So all of it's a process, but he's excited about being out there on the field with his teammates.
It'd be cool if the next time we did this was at the or a Super Bowl. And in closing, part two, I promise, and I know both of you guys are really comfortable with this type of stuff, but I'm going to roll the dice anyway. Kevin Stefanski, what do you like about your squad? What do you like about the 2024 Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, I think we're just now figuring who we are out. And there's certain things that we hang our hat on that will never change, and how we play, the things that we believe in offensively, defensively, special teams. But this time of August is you're starting to streamline what you do on all three sides of the ball. So right now I see a team that's working hard, but we're miles to go before September 8th. We have a lot of work to do.
KO?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's what just hit me with what Kevin said was you're figuring out really your identity based upon the football philosophies you do believe in as a coaching staff, and then the players you fit into the roles to really fill out that football philosophy. But there's still things like play style. There's still things like effort. The guys having the mental understanding of the challenges that will be ahead schematically week in and week out. You're really laying the foundation for all that right now, but you never ever can shy away from looking each other square in the eyes in your building and saying, are we being who we say we are?
Yeah.
Are you establishing that core foundation belief of how you want your football team to look? And if you're not, you can try to there's still time, but as I'll tell the guys tonight, day one at Cleveland is over. We get one more op tomorrow to come out here and continue to shape what the 2024 Minnesota Vikings will look like, and no better place to do it than his shop here, man. This has been awesome.
Oh, you guys are awesome. Thank you very much for doing this.
Appreciate you, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Kevin O'Connell and Kevin Stefanski, AFC Kevin and NFC Kevin, and that was an absolute privilege. Thank you very much for everybody who aided in putting it together, and we hope to amass and accumulate more interviews after today's joint practice, day 2. From Berea, Ohio, and the Cleveland Browns facility. The second joint practice begins about 4 hours from now. And courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com, what's on deck 9 to noon includes the analyst Pete Bercich around the corner. Vikes Bites comes up a bit later. Outside linebackers coach and assistant head coach, former head coach of the Cleveland Browns, Mike Pettin, will join yours truly here at the team hotel in Cleveland. And then Gabe Henderson with some thoughts on some things that transpired yesterday at the joint practices, including an injury to Jordan Addison, where I can't believe he'll practice today. And we'll chat about that with the analyst around the corner when we return to Cleveland Joint Practice Covenant Day 2 at FM 100.3 KFAN. Welcome back to Old Cleveland. It's yours truly, Paul Allen, with the analyst Pete Bercich. Good morning.
Good morning, Paul. Yesterday was it was so much fun, just because you get off the buses with the team and everybody else, and you get to go out there. And then the first 20 minutes, it was just everybody standing on the field and talking, and you get to see all these people that you. Number one, maybe didn't know were with Cleveland, but all these names that with the Stefanskis and everybody else.
It leaked into practice time. I mean, I taped an interview with
that's right. Yeah, it did actually.
With senior NFL insider for The Athletic, Diana Rossini, and it's going to play about an hour from now. And one of the things she said either before and or during was, well, I just couldn't believe, all of the glad handing and hugs and fellowship and everything. It was like 45 minutes. Practice started 20 minutes late because everybody was just like catching up and stuff like that.
And that's good, because it wasn't like the Steelers rolled in town and everybody hated each other and stayed on opposite sides. Anyway, but what is such classic football, and it made me miss made me miss being a coach and being a player and all that, was the main topic of conversation that went on, mainly with us and people from the Vikings staff and people, the Vikings coaches. But you remember what the topic was that everybody was talking about?
Oh, geez. Let's see.
Surrounded one guy. from Cleveland.
Bill Musgrave talked about the art of putting the lotion in the basket, and it puts the lotion on the skin. Stefanski was teasing Stefanski. Nice of your dad, Ed, to be here because he's golfing in Scotland with Kevin's brother. So we joked about that. I don't. What was the common thread?
David Njoku.
Oh yes, David Njoku in the body.
That's
yes.
what everybody.
Yes.
Everybody's like, hey, it's like, oh, these fields are nice. And how about the size of Njoku? And
right.
Everybody. It was just. Everybody
when it drew
talked about how much. I mean, just
yes.
physically, that man is a monster.
Yes. When I went full cartoon character on it, when I first saw him, I was next to you, and I'm glad I was because you played. So therefore, you've played next to, let's say, Dixon Edwards.
Yeah, I mean, all these.
He was a physical specimen, right?
Yeah.
You remember Keith Newman, linebacker Keith.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was the first one off the bus.
Adrian Peterson, with the muscles on top of muscles.
McKinney, Hutchinson.
Yeah,
I mean, just
but
these
they all looked like normal men who just work out a lot, stay in shape, and have been gifted, with this type of body.
Yes,
David Njoku is otherworldly with the way he looks, and simply because you recognize he's a tight end that runs a 4.5 40. And I'm like with Chad O'Shea, who's on the staff for Cleveland. He used to be Childress's wide receivers or maybe assistant wide receivers coach for George Stewart. And Musgrave, I'm like, I don't know how he doesn't have 150 yards every single game. And if he's pass protecting, how does anybody get around that monster? We'll save their responses for off the air.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a world of elite athletes. Mm-hmm. We're in a world where corners are 6'2", 6'3". Yada, yada, yada. To stand out in that crowd with 160, 150 other football players is remarkable. And that man stood out like a sore thumb. So much so, like I said, it was a topic of conversation. You see the trainer, you're like, how you doing? This is great, nice field, huh? You see the size of Njoku, and they're like, oh, my God, the guy's a
But I think you're missing the A topic from the whole thing. With all due respect, because you unfurled it, and it was funny as bleep. So here's Vikings inside linebackers coach Mike Saravo. Fantastic guy.
Yes.
So who does he coach? He coaches Blake Cashman and a bunch of other guys. Oh, and Ivan Pace Jr., who is, to say he's diminutive might be too much. He's diminutive.
In this world, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, like Eric Kendricks wasn't super tall either.
Right.
So just think that. And you hit Saravo with, that's going to be fun with Ivan Pace Jr. on that monster right there.
Exactly.
See, that's what makes joint practices and this time of the year. It's just so great because now, granted, this common thread of catastrophe continues for the Vikings from Kyrie Jackson through Jordan Addison in the car. Mekhi Blackman, J.J. McCarthy, now Jordan Addison leaving on a cart with an ankle. This common thread of catastrophe just needs to stop any time now. However, there are times, because the games don't count yet, so therefore the anxiety level is just a little
not even close.
Different than it's going to be in a month.
It's not even close.
But this is the time to kibitz and have fun and joke like that. And it was just terrific yesterday, man.
That's really kind of the best part of the whole thing, and that's what the guys do and the players do on the bus on the way back. They talk about this guy and that guy. And did you see this and did you see that? And you know what? Not since I saw Alonzo Spellman on the hoof.
Yeah, that's a great call.
I've been as physically impressed with somebody. It's fun. That's the fun part about this whole thing, and just laughing about it, and just commenting on the freaks that are on the other side of the football. And then you line up and you go and you have at it, and no excuses and blah blah blah. And I think it was a good competitive day yesterday. The defense unfurled a lot more of what they normally do. I think it went a lot better for our defense than maybe our offense. Our offense, I don't think, matched the defense of Cleveland. I think we had talked about before, they've got a lot of tough guys over there. They got a lot of guys that see themselves that way, and that's their job, that's their role. And they got that group stuck together. They were rowdy. They were
Yeah,
they wanted to compete.
Yep, they're
right?
loud.
They're loud.
They're physical, and they talk a lot of trash.
Yeah,
and I'm glad you stood where you stood. Like just to get a visual at the Cleveland Browns training facility in Berea, Ohio. You have 2 practice fields, and on one field, a certain, like say the Vikings' second offense is going against the Browns' second defense. Yeah. On the other field, Vikings ones versus Cleveland ones. I mean, your head was on a swivel. And you and I have the same gene this way, where I don't know how you handled it, but the overstimulation yesterday, I had to walk away because it was hot. So it's hot. I'm overstimulated. I'm trying to tape interviews. I'm freaked out at David and Njoku. We're catching up with everybody. I had to go sit in the shade for a little bit and just recalibrate.
That's those hydration breaks take on a whole new meaning when they break. And so you're like, okay, I can look around
I'm
now.
glad you stood between those fields. Gabe did too. And you guys, your heads were on swivels like, oh, wow, Mullins did what?
Right.
Oh, wow, Cam Bynum, great you pick on the other field and so on.
For fans that have been to TCO, their entire practice facility is about half the size of those fields. There's two fields very, very close to each other, and then there's maybe a half a field on, I believe it's the south side or whatever, where the offensive linemen and defensive linemen do their fat things and run around and sweat, you know. And then when everybody comes together, you
define doing their fat things.
Well, that's what linemen do, right? They just kind of do their fat things.
Yeah, but when you say that, it reminds me of Pat Williams, the former Vikings nose tackle. 9 to noon, or it was 10 to 1 just for fun, or whatever it was at that time, and I posed some question to him, and he's like, "On a fat, I'm fine." I'm like, "What? On a fat, I'm fine." And then Kevin Williams said to me, "He just said I'm not fat, I'm fine." Yeah. I'm like, "Okay, I got it."
He's not fat, he's fine.
On a fat, I'm fine.
You watch what I mean by that is they just literally get in a stance, and then the whole point, the rest of practice is getting out of that stance in a good way. That's that's all they do. Work on their feet and all that kind of stuff, which is what they have to do. But that's what I mean by they don't cover much ground, right? You watch the safeties and the corners go through their drill, and they're covering half the field on each rep, and then the offensive linemen are over there taking 3 steps, or going through a little cage or hitting a sled or whatever. So that's what I meant. That's what I meant by that.
Darisaw, I really, really enjoyed watching Darisaw and Myles Garrett. Now, if they had one-on-ones, I missed it.
But I watched them.
Okay, well, watching the 11-on-11. It's Christian is so athletically gifted and so talented, and he's healthy. And Myles is Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, now that Aaron Donald's gone, it starts and stops for me with Myles Garrett. And Christian stood him up a fair amount of times and represented well. Then Myles got mad, and he put this move on him where he faked out because there was no double. Faked outside. He came inside so quickly, got his right arm in there, and with one arm, pushed that man to the side, and it would have been a sack. And then, and you're going to love this, man. And maybe you saw it. Practice is over. They each tap each other on the helmet. They hugged. Garrett was talking to Darisaw. I don't know what he was saying, but then they hugged again. And it was just really cool when you battle like that. You got the best of the best ever to best over here in 95. 71's high-end stock getting better. And they just battled for 2 hours. It was terrific.
Yeah, they did. And the other part is after practice, we were over. You were doing your deal in the tent. I don't know if you got the chance, but to look out on the field and to see who was still out there doing things 20 minutes after practice was over.
Jefferson.
It was Garrett. Had his, Myles Garrett running.
Oh wow.
Running back and forth on the field doing gassers.
I don't know what was him.
And then who else? Justin Jefferson out there.
He's catching and running routes 20 minutes after the practice.
Exactly. And then so for anyone who wonders why these guys are great, it's not because they're just born that way. It's because they work and they work and they work and they try to you attack your weaknesses and get better. And if there's something about your game right now that you don't like, you spend time after practice working on it. So that part of it too was, I think, there's no mystery why these two guys are two of the best players on the field. Defensive Player of the Year, potential Offensive Player of the Year, 2,000-yard receiver. They're out there Where a lot of the younger guys, what are they doing? They're right to the bus. Sarah, you got a smoothie. They're in the air conditioning. And then you've got these guys out here still working. It's like, it's no mystery. It's not a mystery of why these guys are so good.
Now, you said something earlier I do not want to gloss over, where you're like, they had more defense or used more defense.
Yes.
Flores and the Vikings defense. What does that mean?
By that, I mean, you didn't see just a 4-man front or a 5-man front. We were walking the safeties and linebackers up into the A gaps and doing, substituting different personnel groups. So doing a lot more of what we saw out of Flores a year ago and what we did not see out of Flores on Saturday against the Raiders. I kind of, I went on I wouldn't call it on a limb. I spoke what I saw, and that was, hey, we were very simplistic defensively.
Yeah.
Because, it was
the Raiders game.
It was frustrating to see them throw the ball up and down the field. You had two quarterbacks for the Raiders who are vying for a starting position. That is a true battle going on. So it does make sense for them to carry more offense to evaluate which one of these two is going to be the starter. And we defensively just went as bare bones as we could. That's what I saw.
Wow.
That's in wasn't getting a chance to watch the things, like with the system that we did and the defenses that we ran. It was confirmed. I'm like, okay, we're definitely throwing some different things at them. So then, conversely, on Saturday, if we stay simple again, and it's again a lot like, and you start getting frustrated because they're moving the chains, and we're just playing 3D type coverage. It's like, well, we're seeing the same thing again. That's a decision that's been made by the coaches to evaluate plays. I'm sure they have their reasons, but it is what it is, and so I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to worry about it. And because those are the questions that you're going to get asked. You're like, oh my God, the Cleveland offense ran up and down the field on us. We're 2 weeks in a row, we're panicking. It's like,
Well, conversely, in that Raiders game, well, that's fascinating the way you laid that out. Like, say, Brian Flores unfurled a handful of defensive calls. We don't have checks, don't have audibles. We ain't using that here. Yeah. So now Jacoby Myers is getting loose a little bit. Why? Because Pierce and Getsy come into it trying to settle their quarterback battle. So we're going to put some of our better stuff in here to see who can execute it. Conversely, O'Connell, and we knew this from earlier in the week when we met with him for the simulcast, is he knew Crosby and Wilkins were playing, so he used the first Minnesota Moving Company, and they came up with stuff they will use in the regular season, because the last thing you want are Wilkins and Crosby wrecking a game.
Right. And I don't recall the guy's name, but the number 3 quarterback for the Raiders.
Yeah, Anthony Brown.
As soon as he came in, that offense changed. That offense started
he can't throw.
Nowhere. Right?
Well, the plays they called, you could tell. We even said it jokingly in the simulcast that I don't think they want him to throw, Pete.
Right, exactly. But that's kind of my point. So, overall, well, it's so there's so many things to get.
It's overstimulation, man.
It is. It's like, what do you worry about?
Yes.
What is?
Okay. Well, how about this?
But that's part of. I see that as part of my job, or our job, is to say, hey. Take a breath, and we'll don't worry about this. This is a concern over here. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And then,
well,
I just want to make sure you're right.
With my sneaky spot, I can't get. They don't do preseason all 22. All right. So I'm YouTube highlights like everybody else, and the highlight of the Trent Sherfield Sr. touchdown, it cuts off. As he blazes down the field, then it goes to the catch. Yeah. But right before, he left the screen, he angled left and did something with his shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then he got wide open. I thought it was a busted coverage. It wasn't. So Keenan McCardell, this is just so fascinating, and it just further entails and proves how difficult football can be to analyze unless you know where all the bones are buried. So I got McCardell here yesterday, and I asked him, what did Sherfield do with his shoulders or something top of the route before he busted it off right? Was it a busted coverage? He said no. He said on the Kane-Wanwu touchdown, Sherfield came down the field and went and crushed the safety.
And blocked them. Yeah.
Okay, well, it was the same look, and the safety thought the same bit was coming, so he got ready to battle. And then Sherfield Sr. broke it off right. He was wide open, and the kid found him. This Trent Sherfield Sr., we're not talking all-pro receiver, but we are talking super tough guy who gets the game. And man, I just really like having him on the team.
And if you block, that's how you get rewarded. I see you see that at tight end. You know, people talk about how good Gronkowski was. Gronkowski was such a good red zone receiver because he was such a good blocker, right? And you knew you weren't getting the play action his way because you weren't sure because he would block for the run. So for a lot of these wide receivers, the best way for them to get open is to do what? Block. And again, it's you get one.
That's Pete Bercich with PA down in Cleveland. We're going to reboot this operation and get more from the Vox and the analysts side by side in Cleveland. It's 9 to noon, covering the joint practices, Vikings and Browns on the shores of Lake Erie. More ahead, 9 to noon on the Fan.
There are a couple of newer names for the Minnesota Vikings who performed rather admirably in the first joint practice yesterday. One is defensive lineman Jerry Tillery, formerly a first-round pick of the Chargers, played a whale of a game against the Vikings last year at Allegiant when he played for the Las Vegas Raiders, and also Fabian Moreau, who was with Kevin O'Connell, I believe, in his stop at Washington. Tillery and Moreau, what'd you like?
Tillery was just a beast yesterday. I mean, you see him on the hoof. He's 6'6"? I mean, he's 300 pounds, 6'6", 6'5". Mm-hmm. Just a beast of a guy. Carries 300 pounds better than anyone I've ever seen.
6'6", 300.
Yeah, I mean, he's 300 pounds, but he doesn't look it. So obviously he has the requisite height, weight. And he has the speed and quickness, and with his career and with the ups and the downs, it's there. It's just a matter of whether or not he could tie it all together. And yesterday was proof of how good he can be and how effective he can be if he can keep it all together. Now, can he do it for an entire season? I don't know, and I think that's something in the big picture you have to take a step back and look and say, this is where Flores really it really pays to have a Flores, because a Flores, if he can reach a guy like this, motivate a guy like this, keep him involved, and put him in places to succeed, then that's huge. Because it doesn't obviously happen everywhere this guy goes, or else he wouldn't have been with this wouldn't be his fourth stop, right? Yep. This wouldn't be his fourth city. So, yeah, keep an eye. I mean, he has it, and he can be unbelievably good.
Right.
But I'll believe it when I see it, and so. But just very impressive day yesterday. And then Fabian Moreau, he's just such a smooth and good athlete. The one-on-ones may not have been the greatest, segment for our defense, and we're not really built that way. It's not what we want. We want to play some more man-to-man, but I think if we do play man-to-man, it's going to be in pressure situations, not because you could play two-man, you could play lurk, you can play four-man rush defense or three-man rush with man behind it. Mm-hmm. But Moreau is just he's just smart. He's smart. He's smooth. He knows when receivers are going into their break. I was just impressed with kind of how he went about his business yesterday. A couple. Cam Bynum had a pick. He had a nice, couple nice plays. I think, again, I look at Cam Bynum. He had 7 pass defense. He had 3 interceptions, right? And I think 7 passes defended. 5 of those should have been interceptions. That would have put him at 7. And there you go. Now you got a guy who might just be the next. He might be a Pro Bowl type caliber season. If he catches everything he gets his hands on, and has a year like last year, and we depended on him one-on-one tackling early in the season so much, and he did such a good job in space. And let's face it, if he's not making the tackle, they're lighting up the scoreboard. It's just how our defense, what it requires out of certain players. So Cam Bynum too, I think, looked really good. Those are the guys I think that stood out the most yesterday. I mean, and then Grenard. If I'm not 100% sure, but there was a hit on our defense, on their offense, forced a fumble, and I believe it was Grenard that hit the running back, and he lit him up like a Christmas tree. If it wasn't Grenard, then it was Tillery. And that's what I'm talking about. That's why I'm saying with Tillery, in how good he can be. I mean, there was some hitting going on that side of the ball, and it was good to see.
Mad producer is here to pepper the Peter.
Absolutely.
Has some questions for the analyst.
Good luck selling that.
Hold
Sorry
on.
about that. That's not going to be a State Fair T-shirt.
Yeah.
Pepper the Peter.
So that would be an L for today.
He's here to pepper the Peter on the fan.
What's up, Nordo? How are you?
Not as good as you guys are in Cleveland.
I miss seeing.
It sucks that the Con's not
I
here.
do miss seeing Nordo sweating in the heat.
But
at these combined practices,
right? But see, that wouldn't have been the case. Like in Cincinnati, the heat index was 108 with humidity.
Right.
Yesterday, we sneaked up mid 80s, but it wasn't humid. There was a little breeze. And
I know
the con needs to be here,
and we didn't have the little Honda generator that was, that we had to. It was so loud.
That's right.
That you had to move it as far away as you can to stretch all the cords.
Yeah,
and things were
Marvin
going in and out.
Lewis was like, "What's the long play with this loud generator here when my quarterback's trying to make calls?" And just, I mean, it's like this year we have tables and tents and coolers with water. It just it's AK. It's anti-con.
He's got the flask in one pocket and then the 20 weight motor oil in the other, and he's doing shots of the wrong stuff. And
oh, that's great.
It was just a total disaster.
Marvin Lewis, what's the long play with the generator here?
It was a tough couple of days. You know, Pete, you're talking about some guys that popped for you at camp, some guys at least that you noticed as you were paying attention to all of this. What is that process like for the Bo Richters of the world or the Jalen Redmonds, where whether it's one-on-one or in team-specific position-specific bits, how do they stand out and make a name for themselves during this process?
By doing everything and taking advantage of every single rep that you possibly can. And I think we have fun with all of this because we've been here and we're going to be here for these guys going through it, especially for guys like Bo Richter, who's trying to make a roster. Every single snap matters. Everything. Every one-on-one, every snap, it all matters. And so for Richter, he's got to take advantage of all of it. And just special teams, it's funny because we'll do some combined team stuff, and then they'll do a special team segment, and then all of us can just kind of walk around and, get a drink of water or sit down or whatever. That's when guys like Richter have to be at their best because that's how they're going to make this team. So it's for him, just keep doing what he's doing. Just keep showing up. Keep showing up.
Yeah.
And that's how you make this team. Sometimes you get lucky and a guy in front of you gets injured, and by necessity you get moved up. But you still have to take advantage of that opportunity because if you don't take advantage of it, they'll go find somebody who will. And that's, again, something that Kwesi said in our meetings a week ago that stuck out to me. He's like, just being aggressive with the acquisition of talent, meaning that's the mindset here. They're going to try to bring in the best talent that they can find, and they're going to do it constantly. It's not personal. It's not like, well, we're not going to bring in a corner because we like the guys that we have, but we don't like you, so we're bringing in a D lineman. No, it's not personal. They're just bringing in the bodies and the players that they can. So, yeah, you have to be extremely focused, and you got to stay healthy. You can't make the club in the tub. That's that if you're not getting paid $5-10 million a year, you have to stay healthy. You absolutely have to stay healthy. And for a lot of guys, that's the thing. We all are impressed with Jalen Nailor. He's doing a great job. But for me, it's like I'm not surprised. I know Jalen Nailor is a good football player. I know he's dynamic. I know he's fast. I just want to see him not miss a practice all through training camp, right? Same thing with Kene Nwanwu. I want to see him last throughout the training camp, get a bunch of carries, and stay healthy. It can't happen. These guys are getting older. They're more mature. They should be able to stay healthy, and that's the challenge for them.
You mentioned health, and PA was talking with wide receivers coach Keenan McCardell yesterday, and specifically Jalen Nailor came up and his conversation was surrounding the idea of Jalen Nailor's in the mix here. Then we got Tristan Jackson. He gets that TD. Trent Sherfield.
Yeah, Tristan Jackson's looked really good. He looked really good yesterday too.
No, that's exactly, and that's where he was going down the road of kind of the next man up. I feel good about all these guys. And from your time playing and your time as a coach as well, when you hear the idea, you mentioned the health issues, and we've experienced a fair number of them in recent days and weeks and such. How tough is it, or how true is the belief of next man up as it pertains to filling these spots when somebody goes down?
It is a fact of life, and the Browns are going through it right now too with their offensive line. I mean, they've suffered, a lot of injuries, a lot of guys are not out, and you still have to practice. You still have to put a team on the field. I mean, granted, if you take a look and you're losing a Jordan Addison and you're replacing him with a Tristan Jackson, is that, from a talent standpoint, is that an even trade? No, it's not. But it doesn't mean that the offense is going to take a huge hit, right? And that's what coaches have to step in and look at. Let's say you're going into a game with Jordan Addison that's healthy, but then maybe you're missing him, and now Tristan Jackson's the guy stepping up, or Jalen Naylor stepping up. Well, they have a different skill set, right? And they do different things, in a very good way. And so you may have to massage what you're trying to do. I think it's easier on defense. You might have a guy stepping up who's good in the running game, but not a great man-to-man guy, and you're going, okay, well, we're going to limit the amount of man-to-man we're playing this week because we don't have our guys in there. So there's two sides of this coin. One side is like what Chuck Knox Sr. would say, right? When he would say, it says coach on your shirt for a reason. So coach your guys up. Make them as good as they possibly can be. So don't complain that you don't have A or B or this guy or that guy. Make the guys you have the best you can. And then on the opposite side, for the coordinators, they have to put their guys in positions to succeed. And it's a balance, man. It's a balance. But you can't. I mean, you can't replace. You can't. There's certain talents that you can't replace. You can't just replace Justin Jefferson, right? Jordan Addison could do some things that very few people on the planet can do. So when you lose guys like that, that's a whole nother animal. But you still have to adjust.
So now, in closing with Jordan Addison, and when there's a card involved, people are going to freak out, and I don't know, and I would assume that you don't, or the severity and or complexity of what has happened to Jordan Addison. I wouldn't expect him to practice today, but again, that common thread of catastrophe just needs to stop, and it's a charge that you can't control stopping it.
If you look at any NFL team in that lens and say it always happens to us, it's catastrophe, you're going to find it no matter where you look. Just accept that, right?
Yeah,
so if you want to look at it that way, then that's the way it is.
The Addison bit, man. I mean, when he came down, it's like, okay, I didn't think it was like anything super big or anything. Yeah. Then the cart came out, Gabe cried, and then we didn't see Addison the rest of practice.
Yeah, we lost two people in that injury.
I know.
You lost Addison and Gabe.
All right,
and Dr. Burns chasing him in the cart. Jesus,
cart tipped over, fell on Shelby Harris's foot, and a fight broke out.
Can I get a fully charged cart, for Christ's sake? Jesus, God Almighty! Okay.
All right, I'll see you later. Okay.
All right. See you.
Pete Bercich, the analyst. Vikes Bites are next.